Hey you, hi there, welcome back. Anyone who knows me knows my favorite book of the Bible. Okay, I have many favorites, but there's one I just won't shut up about, and it's the book of John. It is a book I would recommend to any newborn, born-again believer. It is the book if we are starting a Bible reading plan, I always go back to John. And there are many reasons, but I feel like he's the disciple I relate the most with. If you study him, but I won't go into detail. And one of the earliest scriptures you memorize even as a child are in John, like John 3:16. John 11:35. John 11:35 says Jesus wept. Shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus cried. Isn't that weird? Jesus actually cried. And, in a recent meeting, someone asked, in their defense, they were students. A teacher asked them, what is the shortest verse? And they're like, John 11:35, Jesus wept. And then he goes on to ask them, why did Jesus weep? What made him cry? I was shocked at the answers. He was in pain. He was at the cross. He was blah, blah, blah. Do you know? Well, I'll tell you. One of his best friends had died, Lazarus. And, he had been sick before, and they had sent for Jesus. His sisters had sent for Jesus, come and heal him. And Jesus stayed where he was, like intentionally. And then when he finally came to that place, his friend had been dead for 4 days. 4 days. And the sisters were like, you should have come earlier, man. If you'd come earlier, you'd have healed him and he wouldn't be dead. And Jesus goes on this, like, do you believe he'll rise again? And Mary is like, I do believe he'll rise again on the day, but he's dead now, man. He's dead. And Jesus is like, no, you don't get it. I am the resurrection. I am the resurrection. Jesus Christ is the resurrection. And he says, anyone who believes in me will never die. And anyone who believes in me, though they have died, will live again. But then Jesus cries when he's at the tomb. And this is something I saw that really made me reflect, because I'm a crier. Everyone who knows me, I cry. I cry during worship. I cry when I'm talking to babies and they say something profound or scriptural. I'm amazed at their simplicity. Or I cry when I'm watching movies, Christian movies especially. Yes, I cry, and I'm man enough to admit it. But Jesus also cried, so that's all the defense I need. But here's the thing. Jesus knew Lazarus was sick. He knew Lazarus would die if he didn't come. Jesus knew what he was thinking. Jesus knew he was the resurrection. Jesus knew that Lazarus would be alive in a few minutes. Jesus knew, but he still cried. And the most profound thing about this is, if he cried while all this was happening, knowing all that he knows, then it shows me that the fact that I know everything will be okay does not mean that I shouldn't cry when it's not. Knowing things are going to be okay does not mean that you can cry during the sad parts. And I always say, cry those tears and give God more tears to wipe. Because he says he himself will wipe our tears. That's Revelation, I think 21. He himself will wipe our tears, man. How amazing is that? And speaking of 21, Revelation 21, which was also written by John, what gave me away, my favorite disciple. In John 21 is the story of Jesus after the resurrection. And his disciples had given up, Peter leading them, and they went to fish. and they caught nothing the whole night, which is a very familiar story because it had happened before. And they fish the whole night and they catch nothing. And they see someone on the beach. They do not recognize him. And he goes, try the right side. And they cast their nets on the right side and they catch fish. And I think it's 153 fish. Check it out. Read John 21 and let me know in the comments. And they recognize this is Jesus. Actually, John recognizes that's Jesus and he tells Peter. And Peter does not even row to the shore. He just jumps off the boat and swims to shore. And he goes and he finds Jesus. And Jesus is like, bring some of that fish you guys caught. And they were big fish. But when they get to the shore, they found some pieces of hot coal and some fish roasting on it. And I think there was bread also, I'm not sure. But here's my point. The risen Christ, in all his majesty, in all his power, in his heavenliness and all this beauty, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, who had crushed death, who had crushed the head of the serpent, who was victor now without a doubt, without any shadow of a doubt, that Jesus made breakfast for his disciples. How amazing is that? You know, there are different love languages, gifts, quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, and all the likes. My personal love language is food. I love food. If you bring me food, chances are very high I will fall in love. Actually, I think that's how... Okay, let me not get into the details. But every time I've told someone I loved them, food was involved. Now that I think about it, that's crazy. But Jesus actually made breakfast for his disciples, yo. And that touches me, and that should touch every foodie, because I know most of you are foodies. He actually took the time to make breakfast for his disciples. He wasn't like, you guys make, I provided the fish, so you guys make something and I'll eat. Or they found it ready. And he says, I go to my Father's place, and there in his kingdom there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I am going to prepare a place for you. Jesus Christ himself, my friend, who I talk to on a daily, who I walk with, who I haven't seen with these eyes, but one day I will, and I can't wait for the day. Jesus Christ, who is God himself, who could be worried about all the things going on? The fires in California, the sick, the accidents, the people who are lost at sea. He is worried about those things, yes, but still he makes time for me. And he thinks about me in the sense that I know what you want. I know what you like. I know your desires. There are things I have created that you have not yet even seen. You have never even experienced them, but I made them just for you. And they await you in heaven. They await you in this new place that is full of joy and love and peace and comfort. And I myself am going to prepare that place for you to your liking. That blows my mind. He says, greater love has none above this, for one to lay down his life for his friends. He died for me, and then he prepares a place for me. How can I respond to this sort of love except then just to love him back and follow his commands and obey him? The love he has for me and the love he has for you is love that we will never understand. Paul says we will never be able to comprehend how deep, how wide, how high his love is. And nothing can separate us from the love of God. Not time, not principalities, and he lists them. This love that he has for us. A love that he decided he chose to become human. And he chose to come and go through everything we normally go through so that he could identify with us. And so now he qualifies to be our high priest, who is constantly interceding to the Father on our behalf. And he came down, and he comes down to our level, and he explains things to us, and he reveals himself to us through the things we find interesting, through science, through engineering, through aviation, through music, through art, through all these things. And he says, I go to prepare a place for you. I am with you to the very end of age. And you're going to love it. You are going to love heaven, fam. It's going to be great. I myself go to prepare a place for you. God himself is preparing a place for me. He's not sending the angels. He's not sending like, yo, Gabe, what you doing? Stop that. You go fix up his bed or whatever. I don't even know if he'll be sleeping in heaven. Which is something we can get into. Will we be sleeping? Okay, no. Let's not get into that. But God actually goes on to prepare a place. He's preparing a place for us. And I can't wait for the day I see him face to face. And I can't wait. I live for these words. Well done, good and faithful servant. I was always there, and I am proud of you. You made it. This is a place I prepared for you. How amazing is that, fam?